The Human Optimization Podcast is proudly brought to you by Vicon Supplements, where quality meets sustainability. Vicon's all-natural supplements are handcrafted and sustainably produced in Canada, bringing you products that nourish both your well-being and our planet. Visit viconsupplements.com today and be a part of a greener, healthier future.
Are you ready to embark on a journey to the best version of you? Join me, Lisa Pitel-Killah, as I dive deep into the world of hair tissue mineral analysis and functional medicine with fellow experts, and guide you on the path of unlocking your full potential. As a multi-time kettlebell sport world champion, I'm on a mission to reach high-performance professionals from around the world to help you minimize tiring symptoms, maximize health, and gain unstoppable energy. This is the Human Optimization Podcast. Welcome, everybody, to a brand new episode of the Human Optimization Podcast. And I am super pumped today to have Patrick Sullivan Jr. joining us. Wait until you hear about all the amazing things that he has done and what is coming up. So Patrick is the co-founder and CEO of Jigsaw Health. Some of you may already know that, a family-owned supplement business that's sold over $100 million in supplements since 2015. As a former leg cramp sufferer, and I feel like this is so common, Patrick brings a personal perspective to this discussion and is passionate about helping others suffering from this to achieve a cramp-free, restful night's sleep. We are going to dive into all things that I love, minerals, talk about magnesium, we're going to talk about potassium, we're going to talk about muscle cramps. But first, Patrick, welcome to the show.
Lisa, thank you so much for having me on the Human Optimization Podcast. And a note to your listeners, you guys might not know, but Lisa writes all of the introductions. I did not give her any of that. She didn't pump it up. So she makes her guests feel so good. I'm like, wow, this is great. I get to be that person she said I am. So thank you for the very kind intro.
Oh my gosh, yes. And I love it. You know what? It's always when you hear your own intro, you're like, is that actually me? Is that what I'm doing? Right? Because sometimes we forget.
Sometimes we forget. That's right. But we can all strive to become our better selves. In fact, I feel like that's, the mindset we need to have every single day.
I couldn't agree more. So one of the things that my viewers and listeners know is I love to ask you to share your story, right? There's always a story of how you got from the beginning to here, and we want to hear about it.
Well, you mentioned in the intro that in the last 10 years at Jigsaw Health, we've sold over $100 million of nutritional supplements. We're about to have our 20th birthday, and I don't talk about our first 10 years very often.
Why is that?
Our first 10 years, boy, we really just made a lot of mistakes. And if this was an entrepreneurial kind of podcast, we would have a lot of fun going into that. My dad and I started Jigsaw Health in 2005, really based on a book that he had written called Wellness Piece by Piece. Oh. He, for 30 years, struggled with a number of different chronic health conditions, trouble sleeping, stress, gut issues. And this was really a lot kind of pre-internet. So he found himself going into the library and grabbing every kind of health book he could get his hands on and finding there isn't a silver bullet here. There's a number of things I have to do. And so he learned, and he writes in his book that mercury amalgams was a big thing for him. Turns out he is a poor detoxifier of heavy metals. So that was a big problem. Growing up as a baby boomer, he took a lot of antibiotics that wrecked his gut microbiome. And so he had to kind of learn, okay, how do I really repair myself? And thankfully he did. He learned a lot and applied a lot of what he learned with is now what is now Jigsaw Health's product portfolio. One of the biggest mistakes that we made in the beginning was trying to introduce the whole portfolio all at once. So we launched in April of 2005 with 66 SKUs on our website and 0 customers.
Oh my gosh, that's a lot.
It was a lot. We had everything that my dad wanted and even more. And I kind of joke it would have been better had we launched with one product SKU and a list of 66 email addresses. So in the first 10 years, we just kind of threw a lot of stuff at the wall and saw what stuck. And thankfully, one of the big things that stuck is our current today top rated bestseller, Mag SRT.
Yep.
SRT stands for Sustained Release Technology, and we even validated its absorption and effectiveness in the Scottsdale Magnesium study, which we did in 2018.
Amazing, amazing. And definitely, so I can comfortably say that in, the past decade plus, that magnesium deficiency is one of the most common mineral deficiencies, right, across our entire nation.
Easily.
Yeah.
Um, the NHANES study from 20 years ago showed that 68% of people were deficient in magnesium. In the Scottsdale Magnesium study that we did about 5 years ago, I guess almost 7 years ago now,
Mhm.
I believe it was 75% of people presented with magnesium deficiency. Might even be
Wow.
higher. It's been a while since I've looked at that data,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's just such a prevalent thing because magnesium is not prevalent in our diet.
Yep.
Calcium is quite prevalent, but magnesium is, we're just not generally eating very many magnesium rich foods.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, I will come back around, and I always love kind of adding in some little husband pointers here, because my husband is one of the ones that he knows he definitely uses a ton of magnesium, his body, and he'll be the one waking up in the middle of the night if he doesn't take his minerals with a leg cramp and a Charlie horse, and he has to walk around for 10 minutes trying to get his leg to release, right? So I know people listening and watching are like, oh my gosh, that's happened to me too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And that happened to me growing up all the time. I grew up in the Dallas Fort Worth area, played a lot of soccer growing up
Hmm.
and, hot, humid conditions all weekend playing at tournaments. And I would sheepishly sneak into my parents' room and just be like, can I use the heating pad, please,
Oh my
mom?
gosh.
And I wish I knew then. I really wish my parents knew then
Yep.
what I know now, in that there's actually two types of muscle cramps.
Hmm.
So most people think muscle cramps, and they're like, okay, bananas, potassium.
Hmm.
Well, yes, that's true for one type of muscle cramps. If you're in the midst of an activity and you begin to cramp up, that's a potential sign of a potassium deficiency, which, yes, bananas high in potassium.
Hmm.
But in the middle of the night, those Charlie horses that come out of nowhere, or where you're just kind of sitting down and then you start to stand up and you've got a cramp, that is actually more of a sign of a potential magnesium deficiency.
Yeah.
So both of those are electrolytes. I'm sure your audience has heard of electrolytes.
Hmm.
And magnesium and calcium are on like a teeter-totter together. Calcium clenches, magnesium relaxes. And that peristaltic action we need to have in the body, because that's literally movement.
Hmm.
Potassium and sodium do a similar thing where they're antagonistic against each other, similar to calcium and magnesium. So potassium, sodium on that teeter totter. Now, think about the standard American diet, or just think about most of the foods that you see out at like a soccer tournament. It's like going to be
Hmm.
these chicken sandwiches or pretzels and chips, or
Yep.
things that are much more likely to have sodium and
Hmm.
calcium than to have potassium and magnesium.
Absolutely. Yeah, so we'll get back to magnesium in a minute because, again, for sports, magnesium sufficiency is critical. And so, one of the interesting things, though, is I do love the pickleball product, right, from Jigsaw. And I want to talk about that a little bit because, again, you're talking about those kind of sodium laden foods, and we're always talking about replacing our sodium chloride because we're sweating and we need that adrenal support. But that comes with a stress response at the expense of potassium loss in the urine, right? So having something like pickleball where the potassium can be brought back into the system in that higher dose is really important. And so it is a really cool product. So touch a little bit on that and just the composition of it.
Yeah, that's a great question. So Jigsaw makes a product called Pickleball Cocktail, although we recently renamed it to Potassium Cocktail. The reason being is that this product, this electrolyte powder, contains as its main star 800 milligrams of potassium chloride, which is way more than most other electrolyte powders that are out on the market.
Yep.
In particular, LMNT, or some people call
Mm.
it Element or Elementi. I'm not exactly sure the appropriate name,
Yeah.
but I have a bit of a disagreement with them when it comes to sodium and potassium. They very much lean on to replenishing sodium. So their
Mm.
packets contain 1,000 milligrams of sodium and I believe about 100 milligrams of potassium. Don't quote me on that. I might get it wrong.
Yep.
Jigsaw, we do about the opposite. We have about 800 milligrams of potassium and about 200 milligrams of sodium.
Mm-hmm.
And the reasoning is because, like we talked about earlier, it's so much easier to get sodium from the food supply that is around us than it
Yep.
is to get potassium. So, in a similar context, Jigsaw Health, we don't sell a calcium supplement because I believe calcium is very prevalent in the food supply.
Yep.
I don't know that anyone needs to supplement with calcium or really with sodium.
Mm-hmm.
I think that potassium and magnesium, those are the two minerals that are really deficient in most of the food supply. And I think that for us, the pickleball cocktail, the reason that we created that was that I personally, as I started to fall in love with pickleball, I was out on the court for 2 hours and I was starting to cramp up a little bit. And I was like,
Mm.
well, wait a second. I have plenty of magnesium. Why am I cramping?
Yeah.
And that's when I remembered something that I learned from one of the members of Jigsaw's scientific advisory board. His name is Dr. Decker Weiss. He's a naturopathic cardiologist, and he had taught me that there's two types of muscle cramps.
Yep.
There's the in the midst of playing muscle cramp, which is likely a potassium deficiency. And then there's after you're done playing or in the middle of the night, those Charlie horses that we talked about, that's likely a sign of magnesium deficiency. Well, I don't like the taste of bananas, so I'm not going to eat a banana. So we flavored the Jigsaw pickleball cocktail. The original flavor is this orange flavor that I'm drinking right now.
Mm-hmm.
We recently came out with a blue raspberry that is
Mm.
fantastic, and we're about to release a cherry limeade.
Oh, nice. People love lemonade, kind of limey. Yep, that's going to be great. So,
And it's
yeah.
sugar-free. It doesn't use any maltodextrin, which is another thing that LMNT has been kind of in
Yes.
the news
Yeah,
negatively
about.
for. We
Yep.
sweeten it using stevia and monk
Mm-hmm.
fruit.
Amazing. Well, and like I said, it's a very unique composition that you have, and I think that's why it's so valuable when you're training. It's so important to have those electrolytes on board. But as you said, a lot of the foods that we're consuming and the things that we're kind of replenishing with, especially on the fly, right? When we're trying to just do those extended sessions and things like that, the potassium and magnesium are what's really going to be lacking. So that's really important. Let's talk about why so here it was every runner needs magnesium. I think everybody training needs magnesium.
So that's a great statement. We changed the name of pickleball cocktail to potassium cocktail because we had people calling in saying, "Hey, I play volleyball, but I like the formula that you have in this pickleball cocktail. Can I still take it?" And we heard that a number of times that we were like,
Wait
okay,
a
maybe
minute.
we mislabeled this. When we launched Pickleball Cocktail, it was in 2020, right as the pro pickleball scene was taking
Mm,
off, and as people were, discovering it in their cul-de-sacs, in their neighborhoods. And when I say we, I mean myself and my wife, Ashley,
mhm.
who's my business partner, is also the chief marketing officer of Jigsaw Health. We wanted to come up with a product and name it something that celebrated this sport that
Yep.
we had absolutely fallen in love with. We did a whole splash into the pickleball scene in 2020 that
Mhm.
culminated in actually creating a documentary about pickleball that we released and is available on Amazon Prime Video. That came out in September of 2024, so about 6 months ago. It's
Yep.
called Breaking Pickleball.
Love it. I love it. And we were going down that road anyway because I was like, I want to talk about that because you're wearing your shirt,
It's fun to feel good, ma'am.
right? I
That's
saw
what
the
we
shirt. I'm
say
like,
here,
that's the
Lisa.
shirt in the video.
That's right. That's the shirt in the video.
I
Well,
love it. I love it. Yeah,
this
because
is the tagline that my wife came up with
I, it's
several years ago, and it's great.
It is great. And and so like the orchard, tell us about that. Like that's pretty cool.
Thank you. So the Orchard at Jigsaw Health is the world's first indoor pickleball stadium. I call stadium somewhat liberally. It's more of a boutique stadium. We can squeeze about 150 people
Hmm.
inside. It's 5,000 square feet. We actually have two courts in the orchard, but for events, when we host pro events, we close off one of the courts, put in carpets and chairs and tables, and we just make it feel like you're sitting VIP at
Mm,
a NBA game. That
that's
was
so
really the
cool.
goal that we were going for, and our team, our internal creative team, is just they love getting challenges, or at least I like to think they love getting challenges that Ashley and I dream up
Yep.
and say, hey, I know we sell high quality nutritional supplements. What do you think about producing live sports? And
And
they're
they're
kind
like,
of like,
what?
well, okay, I think we could do that.
Yeah.
So in our building here in Scottsdale, Arizona, we built this beautiful indoor court. It's very spacious. It's air conditioned, which of course you need half of the year here in Scottsdale,
It
Arizona.
is, yes.
And we originally, when we launched it in August of 2022,
Hmm.
partnered with the Pro Pickleball Association to do Tuesday night pickleball featuring the PPA All Stars, and we held a number of really fun events with them. Going into 2023, we decided to try and launch our own local Arizona Pro Pickleball League, and when we were doing that, I mean, again, me and Ashley, we had been inspired by Welcome to Wrexham, a documentary
Oh.
series about Ryan Reynolds and Rob
Hmm.
McElhaney buying a Wales football club. And we thought, well, what if we hired a documentarian and kind of did a similar thing? So,
Yep.
if your audience looks up on YouTube, they'll see the trailer of me saying, um, I hired you guys because if we crash and burn with the Arizona Pickleball League, we should at least get it on tape. And that really was our mentality.
I
I
love
don't
it.
know what's going to happen with this experiment, but I
Yep.
think it's going to be interesting either way.
Yep.
And so the series, it's a six-part docu-series that covers five different teams, local pro teams,
Hmm.
as they play each other over the course of season one to try and win the Orchard Championship Cup.
I love it. I love it. So there is a trailer. We're gonna have all the links in the commentary underneath, so you'll be able to find all of these things. And of course, Patrick shared where you can find that as well. But I'll say the trailer is quite funny, and they're right. Right, pickleball it gets that competitive edge back, right? And it's hard because I'm pretty athletic and I went to play with my neighbor at this, kind of rec league. And they put me up with a young lad who was really good at pickleball. And they thought, oh, you're athletic, you'll be able to handle it. And I got crushed. I was like, what just happened?
Yeah, it's athletic, but you can't necessarily overpower someone that has greater skill. And that's one of the great
Exactly.
things about the game. The classic story is, the college tough guys walking out onto the court and then getting their asses handed to them
Yep.
by Dorothy and Barbara, who are 65 and 72 and know the game and
Yep.
can put the ball where they want to. And it's
I
that
agree.
moment right there that, Joe and Davy decide we're going to get really
We're
good
going
at this game.
to, right?
And we're going to get
Oh my
revenge on
gosh.
Barbara and Dorothy if
Yeah.
it's the last thing we ever do.
So funny, but so true. So true.
Yeah.
So yeah, so Breaking Pickleball, six-part documentary, and you'll be able to check out the Orchard, which is really super cool. But I want to go back down the road of magnesium because again, I think people sometimes are wondering, what do I take? What should I take? And you see people training and they're not taking anything. And you know what? Sometimes when you see some of these kind of cardiac arrest issues that happen, right? These instantaneous issues, that can be as simple as a magnesium deficiency with people who are athletic and training a lot and putting a lot of stress on their body. So let's talk about the magnesium reserves and what stress does there and why it's so important to replenish.
Yeah, let's see if we can go through three different things. One, the sudden deaths. Two, the three forms of magnesium that I like the most.
Hmm.
And then three, the amount of magnesium you should be getting. So, Rick Malter, a gentleman who lives in Sedona,
Hmm.
Arizona, years and years ago told me about this phenomenon in marathons where runners will almost right at the finish line die,
Yep.
pass
Hmm.
out. And his theory is that they basically have run out of magnesium. They've literally used up their last store of magnesium. Remember when we were talking earlier about calcium contracts and magnesium relaxes?
Yep.
Well, what happens when you can't undo a contraction because there's no magnesium?
Yep.
I haven't heard any better theory. I don't know if that's actually true or not. I would love to know, like for certain. It seems certainly like the thesis makes sense to me.
Hmm.
And Rick had he certainly seemed very confident that that was the case. So yeah, going back to what you said, every runner needs magnesium. No, everyone that's exercising needs magnesium, and I would even add everyone needs magnesium. Someone
Hmm.
asked me years ago, can I get addicted to magnesium? And I was like, well, that's a good question. And on reflection, I said, you know what? You already are. Magnesium is one of those essential minerals, essential electrolytes, in fact, that you have to get from outside of your body. Your body can't make magnesium, so you have to get it from outside of your body.
Hmm.
So that's number one. The marathoners passing out instantaneously might be because they literally used up their very last amount of magnesium, which sounds
Yep.
crazy, but it happens. Number two, my three favorite forms of magnesium are magnesium glycinate, magnesium malate, and magnesium threonate. I'll go
Hmm.
through each of those really quickly. So magnesium glycinate is a little bit more of a nighttime magnesium. It's magnesium bound to the amino acid glycine. Jigsaw, we put that into a product called Mag Soothe and use it as a powder at night. For me, I find that it helps me kind of calm down the nighttime brain chatter,
Yep.
and that's that glycine action. So that's magnesium glycinate, number one. Number two, magnesium malate, which Jigsaw does as our original Mag SRT.
Hmm.
Uh, that's magnesium bound to malic acid. Malic acid is a little bit more of an energizing form of magnesium. So I prefer to take magnesium malate with lunch. That's that way I get sort of that sustained release activity. Sometimes I'll do it with breakfast, sometimes I'll do it with dinner. You can really kind of figure out how it works for you, but I tend to do mine with my lunch. The
Hmm.
third form is magnesium L-threonate. That is magnesium bound to threonic acid. That magnesium is a little bit newer of a form, probably about 15 years ago it was created. And there was some interesting studies done at MIT that showed magnesium L-threonate getting past the blood-brain barrier at a
Hmm.
higher level than magnesium sulfate. I believe it was magnesium sulfate that they were comparing it to. I kind of believe that magnesium will get to where it needs to go as long as it's getting past the GI tract. I
Right.
think, our bodies have an amazing innate wisdom to it. And if we kind of put in the right fuel, it figures out how to divvy it up into the correct places. But magnesium L-threonate does have that good data on it. Actually, in the show notes, that reminds me I should include a link to. I did a little short cheat sheet called "My Five Favorite Ways to Get Magnesium."
Oh,
Uh,
fabulous.
yeah, that's a good one. It includes
Hmm.
a couple of different foods as well,
Nice.
namely nuts and seeds,
Hmm.
particular pumpkin seeds, almonds, and cashews.
Mm.
And then also one of my favorite ways is a couple of dark chocolate squares at night.
Yep.
So that is really my rounds out some of my favorite ways to get magnesium. So then, okay, number three, I think I'm staying on track here. How much magnesium should you take? Uh, I take a short question and turn it into a very long answer, but at least I'm sticking to my outline. Morley Robbins is a medical researcher who created something called the Root Cause Protocol. RCP123.org is a fast way to get to his work. But Morley Morley talks about a number that Mildred Seelig, a researcher who wrote the book, Magnesium Factor. So Mildred Seelig, her formula is 5 milligrams of magnesium per pound of body weight. And Morley's corollary is increase upon stress. So in
Yep.
general, what that means is at 100 pounds of body weight, you want to take 500 milligrams of magnesium. At 200 pounds of body weight, that's 1,000 milligrams. But what Morley has found is that stress increases the body's magnesium burn rate. So if you only keep your intake based upon a simple mathematical equation, you're not going to account for those more stressful times. And what do I mean by stress? Everything from workouts that are, extra heavy to even the emotional stressors.
Yep.
The body, maybe your audience, especially the geeks, will remember ATP, adenosine triphosphate, which is basically energy. ATP is actually Mg2 plus ATP. So magnesium is the precursor to energy. You cannot create energy inside of the body. You cannot create ATP without magnesium. So I think Morley has a very interesting corollary to Dr. Selig's original formula. And by the way, the FDA has it all wrong.
Oh
The
my gosh.
FDA in America, basically
Yeah.
they say, oh, 420 milligrams a day is the recommended daily intake. Now, granted, their number is based on to stave off a deficiency,
Yep.
but I like Morley and Mildred's, here's how to get optimal. And, the name of this podcast is the Human Optimization Podcast. So, Lisa, we're here about like, how can we get the optimal levels? So I think that that's a great formula for your audience to be able to follow using those three forms: magglycinate, magmalate, and mag-L-threonate to hopefully stave off a heart attack when they finish the marathon.
Absolutely. Well, it's interesting too. And so one of the things, and magnesium glycinate is great for this, is even regulating the bowels. So when we
Yes.
think about stress, what happens when you get stressed? And I always think about this too. People think about stress from like all the bad stressors, right? But even getting on an airplane and flying over an ocean to another continent, right? That's stress on the body. So when I travel, I always have extra magnesium, right? And usually if you think about the last trip you took, wherever it was, and you get to your destination and then you're like, "Oh, I'm constipated." Huh. Right? That's all about your body dealing with being at that altitude in that airplane, right? All that is a little stressful to the body and you need more magnesium. So super important to listen to your body, because I feel like even in this day and age, which is kind of crazy, is that people come across and they're like, yeah, well, I have a bowel movement every 2-3 days. And you're like, that's not normal. It's common, but it's not normal,
Yeah,
right?
great phrase. That's a perfect phrase, Lisa. Absolutely. All forms of magnesium are likely to help with constipation. Again, it goes back to that peristaltic action of clenching and relaxing,
Yes.
right? Magnesium sulfate actually is often used, magnesium sulfate or magnesium chloride are
Hmm.
often used. I'm sorry, magnesium citrate is often used to prep a patient for a colonoscopy.
Yeah.
So dump a whole bunch of magnesium into the system. Magnesium is hydrophilic, which is a fancy word that means it draws water to it like a magnet.
Hmm.
And next thing you know, the
Everything
system
clears
says,
out.
everybody get out of here. Now, rather than throwing a grenade into your GI tract,
Right.
Jigsaw, we've designed our products to basically help improve regularity rather
Yes.
than having the yo-yo problem. So, you
100%.
stuck and then,
Hmm.
bombs away. It's like we want to just have you regular on on your number 2 cycle.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and you know, and it's funny, who knew we were going to be talking, we didn't start off talking about poop today, but I always feel like every conversation in the office we talk about poop. Everybody's used to it.
That's
But, you
right.
know, but it's true. And if you're not regular and you're listening to this podcast or watching this episode, please know that that is directly linked to magnesium deficiency and you need to deal with that. And now we have a great magnesium for you to source. So I want to touch on one. We talked about breaking pickleball. We talked about magnesium. We talked about your newly labeled potassium supplement support supplement. I want to talk a little bit what's coming up so we can get people excited about what's coming in July 2025. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
I'm happy to announce to your audience that we are working on a new documentary feature called Breaking Big Food.
Love it.
The subtitle is How the American Food System Went Rotten and How It's Being Revived. So this is a project that we began working on in September, of 2024 with Callie and Casey Means, the authors of Good Energy. Great book that came out about a year ago, early 2024. Callie actually lives in Phoenix, local to us, and I'd met him a few months earlier at an event, and I was like, this guy really put the pieces together well of all the things that are wrong in America with the food supply and how it's connected to all of these terrible chronic disease markers that keep going up and up and up.
Yeah.
Wow, good job. And I didn't really think that much of it until a few months later when I saw Callie and Casey on the Tucker Carlson podcast. And I was like, they nailed it. And it turns out that podcast episode, according to Apple Podcasts, was the most shared episode of 2024. It's
Amazing.
a tour de force of all the things we're doing wrong. And so Ashley and I reached out to Callie and said, hey, we think there's a documentary here to help tell this story to a broad audience.
Yep.
And to also inspire that audience, because there's one thing about knowing the problem, but then what do you do about it?
Absolutely.
And so the second half of that subtitle is How It's Being Revived is with our documentary film crew, we've been covering a number of basically micro markets, organic farms, organic growers, just basically the local ecosystem to show how it's then all connected. And it helps to like raise awareness of like, okay, well, I can't go raise chickens. I don't have the space or whatever, although it doesn't really actually take that much space to raise your own chickens and get your own eggs. And with the cost of eggs, maybe you should consider doing it. Go to Tiffany from Inspire Farms in Mesa. She'll show you everything you need to know about how to do it. And she's going to be in our documentary. So the thing is like, even if I can't, it's like knowing that there's an option locally that's not at my supermarket, but it is maybe right down the road from my supermarket. I don't have to drive all the way to Inspire Farms. I can go to Good Living Greens in Fountain Hills here. Oh my gosh, this is amazing. So we, through this documentary, really look to help support the MAHA movement, Make America Healthy Again movement, and to really help to fix the food system in America. I would love nothing more than for Kellogg's or General Mills to say, wow, we have a lot of logistics in place and we're doing not so great things with the food that we're making. But with with all those logistics in place, with our employees, maybe we could begin tweaking our formulas. Maybe we could begin working with farmers to grow better. I think it's a multi-year process to really change the food supply, but we have to change it here in America and other places as well. I don't know how things are there in Canada.
Yeah, you know what? I feel like we're facing very similar things, right? It's not, I wouldn't say it's all that much different. And, searching for, we have a farmer where we get our beef, we have a farmer where we get our chickens, right? So sourcing out all that, you really have to dig. You've got to do it on your own, right? And so we've done it. But and in the summertime, we grow all of our own vegetables and search for that organic choices and things like that. But it's still hard, and it's still, and people think that it's, I want to say, so if you hop into the grocery store and you're buying your organic veggies, that's going to be a bit more expensive. But at the end of the day, maybe we don't have as many health problems that now you have to pay to fix, right? So it's an investment in your health, just like supplements and everything else that you want to do. It's an investment in your health. And I'll tell you that a lot of times, if you're finding a farmer to, for your beef and your chicken and things like that, it's usually cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And people think, oh, I can't do that. It's going to be more expensive. It's actually usually ends up to be a little bit cheaper. So I highly recommend if you have that option. Like, I think this is amazing, the work you're doing, because it's just, again, it's empowering people to take their health into their own hands and find the best that they can, right?
Yeah, another resource that we'll be including is AJ from thefarm.org, from
Mm,
thefarm.org, really connecting farmers with people who want to buy those products.
yep,
I mean, the other thing about eating higher nutrient density is that you don't end up eating as much. So
exactly.
the two grass-fed fillets that you grill up, you end up having some left over in your salad the next day.
Yep.
It's really kind of an amazing thing. And there's a saying actually that I heard from AJ. I don't think that he coined it, but when you said you can, his saying is you can pay the farmer now or the pharma later.
That's a good one. I like
That's a
that.
really good one. That's a
It's,
really good one from
and it
AJ.
couldn't be more true. It really couldn't, right? So yeah, make that investment. I mean, aren't you worth it? I always say like and it goes back to I had a doc on the show a few weeks back, and it goes back to health span, not lifespan,
Yes.
right? I love that when he said that, I was like, oh, that resonates with me so much. Because
Yeah.
as much as we all want to live a long life, I want to live a long, healthy life, right? Those
Yes.
are two totally different things, for
And to
sure.
change that mindset now to
Mm-hmm.
thinking about health span
Yep.
rather than lifespan, huge mental shift.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But so necessary. So, oh my, so many amazing things that you're doing. I can't wait to see it. So July 2025 is the tentative beginning to all this being available.
Yes, well, that's what I've told the team is that's our release date that we are aiming for,
Amazing.
July 4th, 2025. Although
Amazing.
recently, Ashley and I talked about, I don't think people tend to watch documentaries on July 4th. They're more watching like fireworks. So I guess we can release it a little bit later if we
Yeah.
need to.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
this is kind of funny. It felt like breaking pickleball was sort of a trial run
Mm,
for our team
yep.
to, make documentaries together. And with breaking pickleball, I felt like there was a lot of Sisyphus pushing a boulder up a hill.
Yep.
And with breaking big food, we have found so much flow,
Amazing.
so many connections,
Hmm.
so many awesome things that have unfolded kind of based off of the idea and the go ahead from Callie. Callie really represents Callie means that is,
Hmm.
really represents and will portray in the documentary how the American food system went rotten.
Hmm.
We weren't exactly sure how we were going to show how it's being revived, but we were inspired by our little micro market here in Fountain Hills called Good Living Greens.
Okay.
And Jill and Jeremy, we go in there to get our eggs, our milk, our veggies, because
Yep.
we don't have the space or the time to grow it. And what
Hmm.
Jill is doing is like, well, I was going around to all these farmers anyways for
Hmm.
my own personal shopping. And my friends were saying, hey, could you pick up some eggs for me? Could you pick up some milk for me? She's like, how about we just do it and like put it all in a store? So
Hmm.
they're in about 1,000 square foot market, but they have all their regulars. They're actually
That's
doing really
amazing.
well as a business. For me, it's about inspiring the entrepreneurial spirit in
Hmm.
America to see that kind of thing and say, well, I don't have a green thumb, but I can rent that corner space in the shopping center, and I can get customers in.
Yep.
So that's actually it also inspired Ashley and I to right next to the orchard at Jigsaw Health,
Hmm.
a space became available, and we are putting in the Firefly Organic Coffee and Market. So
Love
about
it.
10 miles away from Jill and Jeremy at Good Living Greens in Fountain Hills, we will be in Scottsdale offering a very similar kind of thing to what they have. So we'll have raw milk and farm fresh eggs and fresh sourdough
Mm-hmm.
and organic coffee.
Amazing.
We're thrilled to be building that, and we're also filming the creation of the Firefly
Mm-hmm.
in the documentary.
Love
So
it.
all of it's coming together in just an amazing way.
I love it. And you know what? When that happens, it means it was meant to be.
I feel the
Yeah.
exact same way.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay. Well, thank you, Patrick. This was amazing. Such great information. I hope you had an aha moment. That is why we do this. And I'm going to share everywhere you can find Patrick, as well as Jigsaw Health, as well as the Breaking Pickleball. And I want you to follow Patrick on X. That is where he is most active, keeping you up to date on what is going on. And that is Real Patrick Jr., JR on X. So make sure you follow him there and yeah, just keep up to date with everything that's going on with the new documentary as well. So thank you for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to my channel. There's a brand new episode every 2 weeks. Give this episode a thumbs up. And if you're listening on your favorite podcast host, make sure you give this episode a like, and we will see you next time. Thanks for joining us today on the Human Optimization Podcast. Episode technical production is by Grace Sylvester and guest booking by Stu Tate. Want to learn more? Visit Pitel-Killah.com for incredible free resources to supercharge your journey to becoming the best version of you. If you enjoyed this podcast, please like and subscribe to the Human Optimization Podcast and follow me on social media at Pitel-Killah.